I don't know if you all are barbecue aficionados for years and years, but I wanted just to tell you about how my little barbecue adventure began. This is my husband and I, and he took me to the Broadmoor. I don't know if any of you have ever been to the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs, but it's a 5-star dining and lodging hotel. And when you go there, you feel like you're transported to a different world. It's also, refined and beautiful, and like you're in, a palace in Europe. And so if you've never been there, I highly recommend it. But my husband took me for my birthday for brunch. And this is that day. And we had been walking across, there's a bridge that, as you can see, we're on the water. I'm leaning next to the railing there, which crosses over the water, over the lake. And I was doing a selfie. And this woman came by and she said, "Would you like me to take a photo for you?" And so we said, "Sure." And so she put her stuff down and took a photo, and then we said thanks, and she went on her way. And my husband said, "I wonder if that barbecue class, did you see that book that she had in her bag there? It was by that guy, who does all those barbecue shows on PBS. And he does these." I was like, "What? You're kidding. You said you saw that? You didn't tell me? Let's go catch her." So we ran after her and we got her just before she went up the elevator. And she said, "Yes, I just finished this 3-day barbecue university workshop with Stephen Raichlen. And I had wanted, way before I met my husband, I had wanted to go to learn more about barbecue. And at that time, he was in West Virginia doing these workshops, and I was single then, and it cost a lot of money. And so I was like, oh, I put it off. But I had this desire, for years to be able to be, this is way before I went to college, way before I retired from the Air Force. And I just wanted to have, this barbecue skill set in my back pocket. And so this had been something I put on the back burner, someday maybe I'll get to do this. So when she said he was over in the bookstore signing books, I'm like, what? We gotta go. We gotta catch it. We gotta, say hi, because, this is something I had on my bucket list for a long time. So we ran over to the bookstore at the Broadmoor and met him, and his handler or public relations person said, "Well, we could get you on the list if you want to take this next year when we come back. So give me your email." So I did. And lo and behold, unbeknownst to me, that night I got an email, which I discovered the next day. And it said, excuse me, "We have an opening in our next barbecue university workshop starting tonight." And I'm like, ah! And the price was $400, which I figured was per day, and it was 3 days. So, $1,200 is a deal, because usually it's like $3,000 per person. So I said to my husband, "I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to this barbecue university thing, and I highly recommend you clear your schedule and come with me." So he did. And that night there was this reception, this opening reception, which, again, if you've never been to the Broadmoor, 5-star dining, they have like 6 restaurants, and all these restaurants had all their, each restaurant had a station around this big, huge banquet reception, which overlooked the golf course and the mountains. And it was just beautiful. And that alone was worth $400, I'm sure, if you were to dine there. And so it turned out that this whole thing cost my husband and I $800 total. It was like a huge blessing, a huge miracle. I was like, wow, thank you, God. This is amazing. It was truly a miracle. And so this is a little bit of a snippet from this Barbecue University experience. And I want you to just take a look at the food and the grills.
Because I'm trying to figure out how we're going to have it, huh?
3 bowls.
Oh, okay, great. So the rest of the presentation. And you tell me when you're ready, right? A grilled lime slice. Grilled lime slice of my sangria. I don't think I didn't notice it. Ready? Just give me the easy one. Hi, everybody. Stephen Raichlen here at Barbecue University, Session 2, Day 2. These guys have worked on board. This is totally incredible. So let's review what we made today. We have our grilled sangria, white with Prosecco. We have our food oven roasted Asian aromatic oysters. We have our bulgogi beef kebabs. This is a grilled pineapple and shrimp salad with Vietnamese seasonings. Over here we have grilled cheese with mixed butter, honey, a grilled watermelon salad. This is an ember roasted beet salad. Pastrami bacon, yeah baby. Texas toast to go with our massive beef shoulder clod and our beer mustard barbecue sauce. These are salt slab roasted striped bass, salt slab with hedgehog mangoes and a beautiful mango sauce with our rotisserie cauliflower. Right here, this is grilled lamb, not only grilled artichokes, sweet peppers, easy, and finally our smoked roasted tamarind dessert. So it's day 2, BBQU. Good job, everybody.
So, if you've never heard of Stephen Raichlen before, he wrote this book and many, many others. That's him right there. And he's been on PBS. He has a couple shows, Project Smoke, all kinds of things. And this was where it all began. And again, another amazing thing about about this whole thing is like, wow, it was like, I bought this book at a library book sale for $2. And guess who it's written by? Stephen Raichlen. And I decided to bring it from Florida, where I was stationed at Cape Canaveral, Patrick Air Force Base, where they do all the launches. And I was a public affairs, public information officer there. And I decided to bring this book to Colorado, where my husband, I met him in Colorado. So that's why we go back and forth, kind of, because I was living in Florida. I came out here and I was assigned out here. And long story short, we go back and forth. So it was amazing because he said, oh, this Miami spice is where it all began, because that's where he lives. And so he moved from Cambridge, Massachusetts, where he was a food writer. So I want to share a little bit of what I learned from Stephen Reichlen's Barbecue University with you guys today. I am certainly not the end all be all, know all on barbecue because, you know, it takes a lot to be really good as a, well, you've seen pit masters. I don't know what your favorite barbecue places are, but I know you got a lot of them in Texas. Texas has its own, you know, special way of barbecuing. And I just love Texas barbecue, having been stationed at Lackland for a number of years. And so today I wanted to talk with you and just clarify what is barbecue and what is grilling and the difference between them. Also talk about direct and indirect grilling, which hopefully you guys will start to use this technique to master, 2-zone cooking, and then types of grills and fuels, a few safety tips, along with Stephen's 10 commandments of perfect grilling. And then we're going to get into the recipes. So how many of you are going to grill with me? Raise your hand. Anybody? Are you, Matt, did you raise your hand, Matt?
No, I'm not going to grill with you. I have a new pellet grill that I've been using a little bit. I'm just here to learn and to just learn some new techniques.
Well, it is, how many of you, this is the first class you've ever been to with me? Okay, well, for those of you who are new, welcome. Thank you for coming. It's exciting to have new people join me. It's also wonderful to have those of you who have been here before come back. So again, welcome everybody. I like to have a lot of interaction because again, it makes it more interesting. I don't know everything about barbecue, and I love to hear what your experiences are. And a lot of you have been probably grilling a lot longer than me. As far as, time goes. But as far as techniques, there's different techniques, there's different grills. So there's a lot of information here. We certainly don't have, we cannot cover it all today, but those are the things that we're going to hit. So are there any questions before we get started? Larry, you got to unmute yourself. I think you're on mute.
Got it. Okay. The top of the menu, difference between barbecue and grilling, you might add smoking, barbecue, grilling, and smoking on that, because we have 3 distinct things going on here. Just a thought.
Well, we're going to get into that. So we are going to touch on smoking a little bit, but I'm going to be cooking with a gas grill for these recipes today. So I'm going to just touch on, charcoal and a little on smoke. But so anyways, without any further ado, let's go into the difference. But first of all, what is barbecue? So how many of you can answer this question? And it's multiple choice. I made it easy.
Yep, I'll go with G.
All right. Those of you who said G, yes, you are correct. So it's all of the above. And barbecue in its truest form is like a low, slow, long-term indirect method of cooking where it uses smoldering logs or charcoal or wood chunks or a combination of all of those to cook food, usually some sort of meat in the process. And it's also got a lot of wood smoke going on. So it gets smoked in the process. And the heat source is usually located away from the food, like underneath. It's not directly underneath the food. Whereas grilling is a quick high heat method of cooking directly over the source of heat. So, and again, that can be charcoal. We'll talk about types of fuel. It can be gas, and it requires usually high temperature, typically in excess of 600 degrees. We're going to talk about the difference in fuels that produce that high heat if you're doing charcoal and wood. So usually things that are 20 minutes or less cooking time are grilling is a really good method for that. It's quick. And, one of the greatest pleasures of grill food is that it's ready fast. And it also gets my husband out of the kitchen. So that's also a good thing. So for parties, it's perfect because he's out there doing his thing or I can do my stuff in here and we're both cooking to have a nice, wonderful party. But grilling is by far the world's most common live fire method of cooking. So those are some of the differences between barbecue and grilling. And barbecue is huge in the South, isn't it? And every state in the South, has a little bit of a difference, whether it's in Texas, the sauce or the way they do it. Same with North Carolina, Kansas City, barbecue, et cetera, et cetera. But so let's talk about, we'll get into the specifics of the differences between the types of methods that each, that are kind of, they depict each state's style. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but excuse me. So now let's talk about the differences between direct and indirect grilling and two-zone cooking. So anybody want to take a stab at what that means? What do you do to get direct and indirect grilling, two zones? How can you
or not overcooked?
say that again?
Either over the coals or not over the coals.
Okay. So basically, if you want, how would you, there's searing, which there's like different types of heat. And there's, you can reverse sear or sear. So what does that mean? Oh, we're going to go back. No,
Is that prior to and then after slow cooking?
Right. So you can either like do slow cooking first and then sear it over direct heat. So the slow cooking would be the indirect, right? So you'd set up two zones, whether you have a charcoal or a gas grill. You would first heat it up pretty high, like 600, around 600. And then depending on what you're cooking, it all depends on, again, every grill is different. So some grills have hot zones that are kind of peculiar to those particular grills. And then, some grills, every temperature gauge, may be accurate or not accurate. Just like your oven, you have to have an oven thermometer to calibrate it occasionally. So it is helpful to have like some way of measuring what your grill is doing and where, if it does have any hot zones, or if it's grilling evenly or heating up evenly rather. So when you set up two zone cooking, you're going to have, depending, like say things that take more than 20 minutes, what would be an example of that?
Like a bone-in chicken thigh?
Great. Good example. Or a pork chop. Something that's going to take, it's going to take a little longer because you want it to get to a higher internal temperature before you can eat it safely, right? So it's going to take a little combination of direct and indirect grilling. So how would you set it up if you were going to do, say, pork chops? How would you set up a charcoal grill?
I would probably put coals on one half of the charcoal grill and kind of use it as an indirect convection.
Right. Okay, good. So
Weber also makes little trays to put on either side of their kettle grills. That works out really well.
right. So you've got different kinds of heat going on. You've got conduction, which is directly on the grill. You've got radiation, which is like when you put your hand above the grill. 1 Mississippi means that's a really hot grill. If you can only hold your hand above it for 1 second, count 1 Mississippi. If you want to, just wait for the embers on a charcoal grill to die down a little bit before you put your meat on, you count to 3 or 4 Mississippi. So what I would do is I would put a drip pan in the middle and put the coals, if it's a charcoal grill, on each side of that drip pan. And that would have two zones. The hot zone is on the sides, and then the indirect, more like convection heat is in the middle over the drip pan, so that you don't have flare-ups either.
Do you put any water in the drip pan?
Yeah, absolutely. You can put water, you could put bourbon, you could put apple juice, you could put all kinds of things in the drip
Sounding
pan.
better and better.
Yeah. So that will add flavor as it evaporates. It will get into your meat. So that's kind of what we mean by two-zone cooking, is that you need a safe zone, especially for fatty foods that are going to cause flare-ups, because you want them to, when there's flare-ups, they're going to singe your food and all of that, but you don't want to incinerate it. So you have to have a safe zone to move it to. And that's where the indirect heat will continue cooking the chicken or pork chop to the correct internal temperature, so it's safe to eat without charring it and burning it up. Okay, any questions on that before we move on? All right, let's talk about types of grills and fuels. So again, I'm going to show you a little bit. Stephen Raichlen, how many of you are familiar with Stephen Raichlen, having watched any of his shows? He's pretty amazing, isn't he? So he collects grills. And this is a little bit of what we experienced at Barbecue University as far as what we got to play with.
And this has double walls of metal with air in between them. So that is used for the insulation. And this grill, interesting. It has a heat diffuser plate. You put the coals in the bottom. You put the heat diffuser plate up here. There's a little trap door you can open so you can add your wood chunks. The food goes on the grate, and you control the heat again with the vents at the bottom, the vents at the top. All right, moving on, we've got a couple of Weber Kettle grills, which are just super well designed. For me, if I could only have one grill, it would probably be a Weber Performer. It's got gas ignition for the charcoal. It's great for smoking, great for grilling. The new ones actually come with metal tables, which are a little bit more manly than the plastic ones. And if you're into high design, this is the Dan Cook from Denmark, and it's a kettle grill that kind of looks better than a rubber kettle. Okay, our chimney starters are lit. Whoever's working on that, you see how that you can see glowing coals through the little windows on the side? Mm-hmm. So that's how we know when they're ready. And whoever my fire starter people are, I'm going to ask you to keep these topped up, because once we get grilling, we're going to need a lot of charcoal. Over here, more chimney starters. Oh, yeah, that's good. All right, so if you don't mind, I'm going to start over again, please. No. We'll use this tomorrow when we come to the oysters. Now we're over in our wood burning section. So wood burning oven, wood burning grill. This is called a grill works. And it has a flywheel that raises and lowers the grate. That's how you control the heat. These V-shaped grates that channel the dripping fat into this drip pan, and then you can kind of dip a basting brush in this and baste your meats. We're people. Not my T-bone, my tomahawk people. My tomahawk people, you're going to be here. What you're going to want to do is lift these grates off. You're going to put a chimney starter on each side, and then you're going to start building a wood fire. You want a nice wood fire, nice hot wood fire. Tell you what, let's do it together. Let's take this off. Why don't you take that off for me? But somebody grab me a set of grill gloves, please. Okay. Good. With a grill glove, you want a glove that comes right up the elbow. Excellent. We're going to grab a chimney starter full of coals. Please be careful, everybody. Careful, careful, careful. Stand back. Okay. We're going to dump out the coals on one side. But when we do this, we're going to leave 3 or 4 coals in the bottom of the chimney. And that way, when you fill it up, those coals are going to light another batch. So that is possibly the most useful technique you'll ever learn. And then we'll just lay our wood with that, start kindling the smaller pieces on top, and we can go kind of in a. The whole idea with a wood fire is you want to just leave plenty of air in it. That'll be lit in half a sec. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing over here. This is the newest, another new addition to the Barbecue University family. I'm absolutely crazy about this grill. This is called the Art Flame Grill, and it's a combination plancha and wood burning grill. So the plancha part is this ring here. It's made of forged steel. So this is great if you're cooking, let's say, a fragile fish like a flounder fillet or sole fillet. You can brown it here, and then once it's firmed up, you move it to the center and you grill it directly over wood. So who's working on our fish today? Come on over. Warm yourself and go grab a lit chimney. You set it over there. It opens up. Okay. Folks, in here, there's water in that little bowl that keeps it moist and it gets the spent biscuits. This is really great for smoking, and especially if you want like total idiot-proof smoking. This is a master belt, works on the same principle, but instead of those disquettes, it actually burns wood chunks, which you put, wood chips, which you put in this little cylinder here.
And Stephen, the Bradley working on your smoke project.
Yeah, Project Smoke.
With a cold smoke.
And it's great for cold smoke. There's a cold smoke attachment for it. Cold smoking, by the way, is a technique wherein you smoke a food without cooking it. And if you think of like smoked salmon, okay, that you would serve, or beef jerky, those are cold smoked but not cooked. So moving on now, this is a pellet grill called a Memphis wood-fired grill. And Joe, the tools on this are where? And the way it works is, in the back, there's a hopper. And we fill the hopper, you're gonna need more pellets. Fill the hopper with pellets. And set the heat using this controller here. What's cool about this particular pellet grill is you can take the grate off, and then you can lift this little door that covers the fire grate. And then there's another, Joe, where's the other door? Where's the heat guy for this? Careful, that's hot. So then you put a perforated plate over the burn chamber, and now you're direct grilling. All right, where are my potato people? Okay, so what you guys are gonna do, you're not gonna direct grill these, you're gonna indirect grill these. So your potatoes can go on, because that was the first dish that should go on. So you can put the potatoes on, you'll move this straight back, and you'll put your potatoes on right there, okay? Any questions? Then we're gonna move into gas grill land. This is a Kalamazoo tri-fuel grill. So it starts with gas, but you pull this tray out, and in this tray you can either put charcoal or you can put wood chunks. And this will enable you to cook on a wood fire using gas convenience. The thing is built like a tank, has a great rotisserie system. I think this guy's about $16,000. So we're very happy to have one here for you all to try. All right, moving down here now. The Echelon, Fire Magic Echelon. This is a gas grill with the convenience of a push button raised lid here. Okay. Right. And then we've got a Twin Eagles, we've got a Velux, we've got a Weber Summit, we've got a Sabre. Saber's an interesting grill. It's an infrared grill, meaning that there is fire heated ceramic under this, but the grill grate is sealed. So theoretically, the dripping bacon fat cannot hit the live fire and cause a flare up. However,
comma. Anyway, so that guy's got a lot of grills, eh? And we were fortunate to get to work on that plancha one, which is really cool because you can get planchas to fit your grills, and they're really good for things like you said, delicate items like fish. And they're indirect heat, which is what you want to usually cook fish at because it is so delicate. And then it wouldn't stick to the grill like it would oftentimes on a grate. So moving on from grills to the fuel, let's take a look at that picture there. You got wood, you got natural, you got the original, what's the original charcoal, which is burnt wood. And you can see those long sticks of wood, as well as the smaller ones that look like this. And then you've got cut up wood pieces, along with things like wood pellets, the round discs there, as well as wood chips. These are what we use. And we have the idiot-proof smoker, which my husband just grilled some really nice he just smoked rather, some baby back ribs. So again, that is like barbecue, low, slow, 225 to 35, that type of temperature for like 6 hours. So the connective tissues dissolve and it becomes really tender. And then you've got things like those pellets in that final tray. So again, there's lots of types of fuel, and you've probably seen this brand. It's called Cowboy. You can get it at H-E-B. There's B&B, there's Fogo, there's all kinds. I don't know if you've experimented with them, but there are people who have done tests on these things to see basically how uniform these hardwood chunks are. If you're going to go with these versus, this is the original charcoal versus Henry Ford coming up with these little briquettes. He took the charcoal and then he made briquettes out of them and became even richer. So these things are made up of this kind of wood with other stuff added, such as baking soda to make them hold together and other additives. You don't want to get the ones with lighter fluid unless you just like the taste of lighter fluid on your food. So try and just get the natural charcoal briquettes, hardwood charcoal briquettes. And then as far as, the wood, there's all kinds, just same as, whatever size of wood you have. We have tons of flavors for wood chips, which we use for our smoker, which you can also use on your gas grill by making a little smoker pouch out of foil and just adding the wood chips and then poking holes in them with something that's going to let the air through when you put it under the grill grate. And so we have a smoker box, which we put under the grill, and you just add the wood and then, it starts smoking, and you can add some smoke to your grill, your gas grill, whatever you're grilling. So my husband he bought every flavor of wood chips you can imagine, from cherry to alderwood to, so some of the other things, as far as the types, like those brands that I told you, B&B, Cowboy, those are both made in Mexico. But those chimneys, everybody see those chimneys, what Stephen Raichlen was referring to, that were starting the charcoal. Those, you can fill them full of, there's different styles. His was square, but you can get the round ones. How many of you have a chimney? Those are pretty cool. Tell us about it, Larry. Do you like it?
Yeah, I couldn't live without it. I can't imagine living without it. I've noticed that in the last few years they've gotten bigger than they used to be. Whereas I don't exactly know why. They're a little bit more difficult to handle, but they're still wonderful pieces of equipment. Yeah,
and so the thing that he said, if you learn anything from this class, it is leave a few briquettes or chunks of charcoal in the bottom so that you can start the next batch of charcoal. Because if you're grilling something for a long period of time, longer than 20 minutes, then you probably might want to have a second batch waiting. So in tests, what they've done is they light five chimneys. They put 5 different types of charcoal in them. They analyze basically how consistent the chunks are in size, because you got tiny little chunks or big ones, they're going to burn differently, and they're going to produce more ash quicker if you got a bunch of little chunks, right? And so they analyzed the size, how consistent the size in the bag was. They analyzed how quickly it started in the chimney. They analyzed how long and how hot it burned in the chimney. And so B&B and Cowboy were some of the top brands as far as bang for your buck. And you can get those, like I said, at H-E-B. Fogo is another one that stayed lit a long time, producing heat for a long time. So, there are differences. Some of them don't stay hot. Some of them turn to ash really fast, etc. So, and again, the wood is going to impart a flavor as well. So like I said, my husband has all kinds of, and depending on what we're cooking, like say for the baby back smoked ribs, we used apple wood and hickory. So they impart a flavor, and so you want to think about that too. So again, the smoke, you can add that to the charcoal just by putting the wood chips on the charcoal, and then that'll produce more smoke, or the type of wood that you're actually using instead of briquettes. So those all are things to think about. Any questions on that or comments that you want to add? Okay, so as far as grilling safety tips, most people have charcoal grills, and you want to make sure that your grill is away, of course, from any structures. It's stable, that you aren't using lighter fluid. There's certain things that you want to be very careful about, especially when you're dealing with fires, like wear the right clothing. If you have baking soda, that's what you want to use to control a grease fire. So, you might want to have some of that on hand, and never ever, well, Stephen Raichlen says, never ever leave your post. But be organized is the very first one for Stephen's 10 commandments of perfect grilling. Be organized. That means mise en place. You want to have everything that you need prepared. Mise en place means everything in its place. That's a French term, culinary school thing. So be organized, have everything set up before you start grilling, so that you don't have to run into the house because you forgot whatever, and then your food burns or something bad happens outside and while you're not there. So the other thing we just talked about, gauge your fuel with the charcoal chimneys, at having, the right amount of heat at the time that you're actually grilling your food. You don't want your fire to die out when you put your food on there. And you also want to preheat the grill to the right temperature. So follow the recipes that are suggested. Again, there's a ton of recipes in these books that are amazing, because he has traveled all over the world and has all kinds of really cool recipes. One of the things that you're going to learn today, if you haven't ever had it, is Argentinian Chimichurri Sauce, which is from Argentina, and it is fabulous on flank steak or skirt steak, which you can use. It's definitely an amazing cut of meat if you're cooking it the right way. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So the other thing is, keep your grill clean so that you don't have all this grease hanging out to cause a big problem, as well as keep your food lubricated, keep your grill lubricated, make sure you oil your grill, and we'll do that before we start. And then also, when you're searing, that serves a purpose of keeping those juices in. So you want to use tongs versus stabbing and having the meat juices run out. As well as basting, there's a lot of cool recipes that you can use to add flavor and keep your food moist, especially like dry foods, like, again, chicken, and knowing when to baste. If there's sugar involved, you don't want to put it on early and then have it turn to ash before the food is even cooked. So knowing when to baste is very important, especially sugar baste at the end of when it's almost ready to take off the grill is, or, maybe 10 minutes or whatever it is that you're cooking. If it's over indirect heat, then it's not going to burn as much as it would if you're keeping it over direct heat. And then you also want to keep it covered as far as your grill hood, because once you open that grill, you're going to let a lot of heat out. And that is also a problem when you're trying to cook something, is bringing the heat down. It's not going to brown properly, or it's not going to get cooked in the time that it should. So it's going to take, say, for example, a steak, it could take it a lot longer to get that nice caramelization happening, and therefore it's going to get a lot more done if you don't have the appropriate amount of heat and keep that grill hood covered. Once you get that meat done, or whatever it is that you're cooking, like chicken or whatever, you want to give it a rest once you get it off the grill to let the juices reincorporate into the meat. And again, as I said before, never desert your post if you are outside grilling, unless you have a buddy there watching. So it's always fun to have someone outside cooking with you as well. So any questions on those points? Okay. Larry, you want to unmute yourself?
Sorry, I did it backwards. As far as the resting goes, the temperature keeps on rising even after you take the meat off of the grill and say cover it with a sheet of foil. Mm-hmm. I've had it rise 10 or 15 degrees and actually overcooked like a lamb by letting it rest too long. Is there any guidance on just keeping the meat thermometer in the meat while it's resting to make sure that it doesn't overshoot what you're looking for? I usually take it off about 10 or 15 degrees below the optimal temperature, because while it's resting, it'll come up to it.
Exactly. That's my recommendation. It's just, because it will rise anywhere from 5 to 10, like you say, degrees higher once it's resting. So I would take it off like 5 or 10 degrees. You can always, if it's not done, put it back on. But I'd take it off about, say, for example, the flank steak. I would take it off at 125, 130, because it probably raised to 135, and that's probably about where you want it for medium rare. After you cook it for the appropriate amount of time at the right temperature. So, that's a good point. Any other comments? So that's something to think about, is that it will probably, meat usually does keep increasing in temperature, but if it's pretty much a quick grilling kind of thing, it won't rise too much, I don't think. Like, say, for the example, the flank steak's probably going to stay within 5 degrees.
It's mostly roasts that do that to me.
Right. Yeah. So thin flank steaks, stuff like that. Smaller cuts of, like, say, sautés, chicken sautés. Those probably you need to take those off when the appropriate cooking time is completed, because they're really small, thin, tender cuts of meat. So, you don't want to overcook them because they'll dry out. All right. So general tips on today's recipes. There's no way that I can grill all these things in the amount of time that we have. So I'm going to go through the recipes. Everybody got the recipes, right? All right, good. And we're going to go through each of these that were part of our menu during Barbecue University. And so these are some of the ones that I loved, and that I've had classes here, barbecue classes, and what I do is it's a fun way to have a party, actually, is to put all the ingredients on a huge cookie sheet and, divide people into groups and say, okay, we have a Weber Performer charcoal grill with a gas igniter down below, and then we have a gas grill up above. So, and then we have a smoker too. The idiot proof ones, which are wonderful. I love those. And you put the little wood chips into that little cylinder that he showed us. And so there's a lot of ways that you can have, a fun barbecue if you divide up the work, and you can have all these barbecued recipes and then have a buffet like you saw we had at Barbecue University. So for starters, the grilled sangria, I'm gonna show you outside, and the chorizo grilled dates, let's start with those. So chorizo, this is Spanish chorizo, not Mexican chorizo, and it looks like a salami, and it's hard. And what you do is you just cut it up into almond-sized pieces, about like this. I'm gonna pin my video so you can see a little better. Okay, so can all of you see this? All right, am I pinned? Ashley?
Sorry, you're pinned.
Am I? Okay. All right. Oops. That's the grilled sangria. Okay, so going back to the dates, you want to cut them in almond-sized pieces. Then you've got your dates, and you cut the dates in, make an incision, take out the pit, and then stuff them with the chorizo. Okay, can you see that? That's the chorizo, and I've stuffed it. And then you just squeeze it back together. And then you stretch some thin bacon around the dates. And then I like metal skewers because you can use these wood skewers, and I use 2 of them so that they're easier to flip. And I would just go like this, but I prefer metal because these things, even though you soak them in water, they will burn. But the solution for that is to have a grill shield. And this is a grill shield. You just fold a piece of foil into 3, and then you have your chorizo stuffed date overhanging on the grill, and then you keep this part of the wood protected. So if you don't have metal skewers, you just make a grill shield. And that's the same thing we're going to do for the corn, because you don't want the corn to burn up either. So going back to some of the things that I have as toys, because chefs gotta have toys. I prefer these metal ones, which you can get at the grocery store. They're super cheap, metal skewers, and they're good for shish kebabs. But again, you're gonna have to put them so that you can shut the grill lid. So keep that in mind. And then, so you can just put 2 or 3 on here. But again, remember, bacon is going to cause flare-ups. So you want to put this maybe, 1 minute per side and keep flipping it over. And then you can even put it on the foil and continue cooking it indirectly from there to make sure the bacon gets done. So any questions on the dates? Okay, so going on to the smoke roasted stuff.
Quick question about the dates. I think on the recipe, I thought I saw you served hot. How are they served? Say, if you could prepare them ahead, is there any way to do that and serve them room temperature, or they just lose everything at that?
Well, since bacon is pretty warm at least, so just put them in you could just cover them with foil, or you could just put them in yeah. If you don't want to just, they are an appetizer. So,
Right.
So moving on, smoke roasted cauliflower. So that is a large vegetable, right? So what you're going to do for that, let me show you. I'm going to unpin this for a second.
Might be good. Maybe.
Now you can see
She's got some sauce.
my PowerPoint, right?
It's a pop sauce, but Thai chili sauce, honey sriracha.
Okay, so this is the cauliflower and the Hasselbeck potatoes. So when you're doing the cauliflower, it's going to be indirect heat because otherwise there's no way you can direct grill this. It's going to take a lot more than 20 minutes, isn't it? So per the recipe, again, you have to test it. Every grill's different. You're going to have to test whether or not it's done because it might take an hour and a half. It might take an hour and 15. It might take an hour and 45. You know, it just depends on your grill. So again, you make sure you lubricate the cauliflower, and you can see the picture of basically it's pop sauce. And then you can put all kinds of different, dips in here, but you can see I'm removing the core. Once it's done, I just cut out the core and then all the florets fall into the bowl, and then you just pour the sauce over them and toss it and boom, put it on a serving platter and people can dig in. So that's all there is to that one. You can do it on a rotisserie as well because it's, big enough like the pineapple. You could do it on a rotisserie if you want. The Hasselbeck potatoes, let's talk about that for a second. If you don't have the nifty Hasselbeck potato cutter, which, it's a gadget, you can buy it. But personally, I have so many gadgets. I just choose to innovate a little bit. And I'm going to show you again what I'm doing here. Can all of you see my little invention here? All I do is put a pair of chopsticks on a cutting board and I taped them in place. I've got my potato here and it's not quite touching the bottom because I've got the chopsticks kind of close together so that the potato is not, touching the cutting board. So it's elevated above the cutting board because of the chopsticks. And so you're going to have to gauge that. And then you just cut about 1/4 of an inch and you go down to the chopsticks instead of running all the way through the potato. And then you can baste it without, you just baste it with a sauce and then it's going to fan open. Like you can see in the picture, it fans open as it cooks and the heat makes it cook all the way through a little bit faster. Again, you're going to have to test this as far as whether or not it's done, because it's not fun serving someone crunchy, uncooked potatoes. So make sure you test it. And then one of the things that is really nice for smoking, if you don't want to do the wood pouch or the smoker and you want to do it, but you want extra smoke, this is a really cool thing called the smoking gun. And my husband gave me this for Christmas. And you can see in here, it's got a little bit of a metal mesh thing where you put in the sawdust, and they come in various flavors. And then you attach this hose to it, and then you put the hose into the bowl, and you cover the bowl, which has the potatoes or whatever in it. And these are the different, this is hickory, I believe. This is apple and hickory. Wood chips, which is really sawdust. And that's another way you can do cold smoking, which he talked about as well. So like this is kind of moving ahead, but like if you wanted to smoke the cheese, this is the Halloumi cheese, which is a great grilling cheese. Because kind of Greek, from Greece area, Cyprus. So if you want to smoke it, you could get something like the smoking gun, or again, you could try and do it. Well, that's pretty much the best way to do it, is cold smoking, either in a smoker, big smoker, or with a smoking gun. I think the smoking gun is the way to go. Any questions on the Hasselbeck potatoes? Okay, so moving on, or the cauliflower. This is the grilled watermelon salad with arugula and queso fresco. And again, I used halloumi cheese. You could use queso fresco. And so it's really fun to grill fruit because of the caramelization it gets. And we're gonna grill some of the fruit today for the sangria. So next is the corn. How many of you have done corn on the cob with husks pulled back like that? Anybody? Larry? Matt? Have you, Matt?
I've done husk before. I kind of slice them with a razor blade, then pack them with some butter and spices, and then kind of seal the husk back and let it cook internally.
So what do you mean you slice them with a razor blade?
So I'll take the husk and I'll just put a slice razor blade on one side, then I'll kind of peel it open like a boat.
Okay.
And then I'll put the butter and maybe some spices and then kind of seal it back and then cook it, let it cook inside the husk.
Okay. So you don't remove the silk?
No, what I found is if you cook it the right temperature, the silk kind of, it kind of melts away.
Huh. Well, this corn husk, which, as you can see in the picture, all you do is you just gently coax back the husk and tie it with some kitchen twine. And then this becomes the little handle. And again, I use the grilling shield.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's easy to eat this way too. So, and then you have your basting sauce, and then it comes out looking fabulous. With this recipe was so good. I highly recommend you do. All of them are so good, and I want your feedback. So I want you guys to try these and then let me know, how they worked. Any questions on those? Okay, so next we have the steak, which we're gonna, before we go out and do that, we're gonna talk about marinades. And every southern region and even city like Memphis has their own unique expression of barbecue. And this, like I said, is the Argentinian style. Did you know that Argentina eats more meat per capita than any other country in the world? Lots of gauchos there. You've heard of churrascarias. That's kind of where they come from. Argentina, all South American kind of cowboy land, as well as, Texas isn't the only place that has these cowboys. Montana has, I'm from Montana originally, but anyways, I digress. So marinades, they have, it's a sauce, but it's a liquid that's seasoned with things that are usually like oil, a vinegar, an acid. It's an acid. So oil, acid, aromatics, and seasoning. And like I said, how many of you have had this chimichurri sauce before? No? You're in for a treat. So we're going to talk about flank steak in a little more detail in a second, but I just want to go through these marinades, brines, rubs, sauces. So when would you want to brine, and what would you want to brine?
I've brined Boston butt for pulled pork. I brine my chickens, and I brine short brine for salmon.
Okay, so what do you call a short brine?
15 minutes.
And is it a wet brine or a dry brine?
Wet.
It's a wet brine, okay. So a brine is really a way of curing things. It draws moisture out of things, as a lot of times brines are dry, and they can be rubs, but like salt, it's always involving salt, which pulls the moisture out. So if you're going to brine, you usually don't brine a steak, right? You brine dry things like pork, chicken, turkey, that kind of thing. So when you add salt to a steak, you want to do that right before you put it on the grill, because it's going to draw moisture to the surface of whatever you're brining. And moisture is bad for grilling. And so it's not going to brown properly if it's moist. So you want to, if you're going to salt something like a steak, you want to do it either a couple hours before and then dry it off before you put it on the grill, or salt right before you put it on the grill. Okay. So in either case, you want to make sure that the meat is good and dry so that it has caramelization, the Maillard reaction going on. And it can't do that if it's wet. So dry your meat. And rubs. Rubs are another thing that, have any of you ever heard of the salt lick? I love the salt lick. This is the salt lick barbecue dry rub. This is the salt lick barbecue sauce, which is our favorite. I could drink this stuff. It is so good. Anyway, these are different sauces that, again, each region, like Kansas City style is usually ketchup, apple cider vinegar, and then South Carolina is usually like using white vinegar versus apple cider vinegar. There's Texas style, which uses like cumin, chili powder, Worcestershire, along with brown sugar and apple cider. And then there's Alabama style sauce, which is a white sauce. Have any of you ever heard of that? Which is made with mayonnaise and white vinegar, has a little lemon juice, Worcestershire, and hot sauce. So, and then there's Memphis barbecue, which is not about the sauce at all. It's all about the rub. So the rub is the most important ingredient in Memphis. And a lot of times they're only served, dry without sauce. So there's different rubs, there's different sauces. Like you've probably heard of, well, you might have your favorite dry rub like Yardbird. There's all kinds out there. So anyway, you can make your own, but I highly recommend that you make this chimichurri sauce, which is very, very refreshing. You can serve this room temperature because it's oil and vinegar based. And it's really great for a buffet or outdoor barbecue, picnic, whatever. So with that said, I'm going to go turn on the grill and we're going to go outside, take this kitchen outside. Any questions on anything? I didn't cover the pineapple yet, so I'm going to do that while I'm moving this computer out there and setting it up. So go ahead and ask any questions or make any comments you have while I'm doing that. So here we're going to go on a little tour outside in Colorado. So now you're in Colorado looking at, well, I'll show you Pikes Peak real quick. Can you all see that? Pikes Peak, clear day. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's a beautiful view.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty nice. It's hot here, though. It's hot already.
Wow. Holy dog.
We have our flank steak, and I'm going to just, actually, before I go to the flank steak, I'm going to talk about the pineapple. Have any of you ever grilled pineapple before?
Oh, to go, roll in my pants. Oh, Lordy.
Say that again. What was that? I missed that. Say it a little louder.
Look at something. See if I had a rub to do that brisket.
Okay.
Oh, look at the pineapple.
So that is a smoked whipped cream. So basically it's whipped cream. And again, that smoking gun is used to infuse smoke into the whipped cream, which is kind of a cool idea. So again, more things for you guys to think about. All right, so I'm going to stop my share and everybody can see this now live, big screen, right? All right. Ooh, it is getting warm out here.
Come on, baby.
All right.
Come on, baby.
I'm going to turn on my grill.
We just gotta go soon. Got 20 minutes. We should see the grill 20 minutes. Good God, we need to do that.
Light your grill. You want to make sure that the hood is open.
Yeah. Yes.
This is pretty dirty because I just want to show you guys how I clean it. So I'm going to heat it up.
Yes, like pretty.
And then I'm going to get all those.
Pretty.
You can see it's pretty charred in there. So I'm going to get all that stuff off. Okay.
Should have done that before.
So I like the first one.
We'll leave in about 15 minutes, so you might have to watch the end. Okay.
All right, so it's lit. Now I can light the next two. All right, so the next one's going. And then the last. All right, so all three burners are going. And this grill is, this is the front, middle, back. Okay, so right now they're all going. And I'm going to shut the lid and just let it heat up to high. And I'm going to see if I can pull this table over a bit so it's not so bright. All right. All right, so now I have shade. This is very important when you're outside in the heat. All right, so I've got my little date that I'm going to save over here for later. Chef's treat. And first of all, we're going to talk about while this is heating up, I'm going to do the prep for the grilled sangria. All right, so I've got my fruit. I've already cut it up. And I've got my sugar here with my cinnamon in it. So I'm going to just use a cinnamon stick because I'm going to grill the cinnamon stick a little bit later. And I'm just going to mix all this together here. And I'm going to dip my fruit in it. And then it's all prepped to grill. So that's all you do is just dip your fruit in the sugar. And then when the grill is heated up, you're going to put it on the grill. So I'm just doing some prep on this. And this is what it looks like when it is nice and caramelized and beautiful. All that flavor. And then I'm just going to do these right here today. So I'll get that out of the way. And then I'm going to add, this is a muddler. How many of you know what it means to muddle? What does that mean?
The first thing that popped into mind was to butt into somebody else's business, but I think that's metal, not muddle.
Yeah, that's metal. Close. So muddling is when you put all the fruit that's cut up in the bowl, and just with the sugar mixture right here, we're going to add this to the bowl. And then we're going to push it around, extracting some of the oil from the skin of the orange and the lemons and the limes, and kind of mix it all together. And what you do is you add your brown sugar and you get your bowl ready. So when it comes off the grill, after you've cut it up, you can add it to your bowl and muddle it. And then you add some rum too. Whatever rum you prefer, whatever rum you have on hand, whatever, it doesn't matter. All right, so we'll do that in a second. So that's all prepped. Now, let's talk about the steak. So my flank steak, I want to get it to about 130, and I've got a thermometer. There's also thermometers where you can attach a wire. They have a wire that you can hang outside your grill, and you can keep the thermometer probe in the meat to tell you how well it's cooking and getting done. So there's different thermometers. So that's a thought for you guys as well. So now this is up to 500 already. It doesn't take long. The other thing that I'm going to go get are some grilling gloves that Stephen Raichlen had. So I don't know if you remember these from the little video, but they're really nice to have too. And they go up to the elbow and protect you from the heat or the charcoal or whatever. So I really like these things. They are pretty easy to use. So got that ready. Now let's talk about the steak. This is my chimichurri sauce. You can keep this, make it 3 days ahead of time. It will lose some color, but you can freeze it. I have frozen it, and it's great. And this is the steak. Can you all see that? All right, so flank steak. It can be tough if you don't cook it right or cut it right. Those are some of the tricks to flank steak, because this is a relatively inexpensive cut of meat, but it takes some finesse to make it taste like a more expensive cut, which it can be as good as a porterhouse. You can use it for fajitas, for stir fries, but today we're just gonna grill it. And a lot of times what people do is again, you want to get most of this is oil for the most part, but I do want to get some of that liquid off of it. So I'm just going to put it right here. And so what people do is a lot of times they score it so that more of this marinade would get into the meat, more of the seasoning from the marinade, etc. And This has a bay leaf per the recipe. But again, you don't even have to marinate it if you don't want to. If you don't have time, that's fine. But I would recommend that you do score it. So that just lets some of the interior get a little bit more caramelized. And as you can see, the grains run this way, right? So that's also a factor in how you're going to cut it later on. Okay, so that's all you do pretty much. And you can do it on the other side too. So just score it very lightly on both sides. Okay, so that's ready to go.
You're saying score it across the grain.
Yeah. I mean, you can do it both ways if you want. You could do it this way too to make cross hatches. That's just so that the marinade, you know, gets in there, and also it caramelizes more during cooking. Okay. So our grill is at 600 now. So I am going to clean it. So all of this stuff is turned to ash now. If you could see that. And it's really easy to clean at this point because it's all carbon now. And I think I'm going to use my little grill glove here. Now the heat is, you know, evaporating out of this, so I'm going to have to let it heat up a little bit more before I put my steak and my other stuff on. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now I'm going to let it heat up again. And then I have to move pretty quickly to oil it and get the meat on. Okay. So the flank steak, you're going to want to cook probably, you know, there's different schools of thought on flank steak. Some people say you can even put baking soda on it, which helps the browning. And that is a trick that chefs use for chicken wings, you know, to crisp them up. You add a little bit of baking soda to whatever the batter is, and it crisps them up really nice. So you can add a little bit to the, once you put the oil on, because the oil, you know, you don't need just have to oil the grill. You could oil the steak as well. That's up to you. You don't have to, but it does help with the sticking. And then you could put a little bit of baking soda on that, which this is an experiment because I've never done this. I just, you know, read about it. But you can just put a little bit of the powder into the oil and then, you know, brush it, which is what I'm going to do right here. So I'm going to try and get all of this off because that's just going to burn if I don't. So all of this can come off. Okay. So it's oiled and it's ready to go. It's pretty much dried except for the oil, and that's ready to go on the grill. And the grill is at almost 600. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that 2-zone cooking where at first I'm going to put it on hot, like medium high, which is 450, 500. And so I'm going to turn this down now to that temperature on the 2 burners that are in the middle and the back. I'm going to leave the one that is closest to me on medium. So that's kind of got the indirect cooking going on. And I'm gonna put my fruit in the front burner. Okay, it's gonna be really hot still because it's 600 degrees now. But once I open that lid and oil it, the heat's gonna come off of it. So I'm gonna do that now, and I've got my tongs, and I've got my my paper towel with oil on it, and I'm gonna go ahead and oil the grill. In the areas that I'm going to be putting the food, okay? All right, so I've got that there done. And now I'm going to go ahead and put my steak on, and then my fruit. Okay, so that's one side. Now the fruit. And my cinnamon. I'll add that when I flip it. Okay, so any questions on that? All good? How many of you like making flank steak? Why do you like it, Matt?
I haven't made it. A lot of my friends make it. It's just a lot of, it's really easy and it's a lot of flavor.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. So, right now, I'm going to get this ready so I can bring out the steak and get ready to cut it on here. All right, so when your steak is done, you want to let it rest how long? About 10 minutes, thereabout. So I just put this on at 10:54 and a half. So it's been about 30 seconds and the grill is already up to 550. So I'm going to turn it down in the front to low, and I'm going to keep the middle and the back on medium high. So then it shouldn't get hotter than 550 for the next few minutes. Any questions? All right, so let's go ahead and make that sangria. So right here, I've got my fruit, and I just cut it up. And put it in this mixture here. And then when the rest of it's done, I'm gonna muddle it, and then I'm gonna add some rum. So you got your brown sugar, your white sugar, and your cinnamon. And then I'm going to add the cinnamon stick to that. Okay, so it's staying at 550, which is good. Any questions? What are you guys going to make first?
Steak.
Have you the recipe?
Steak, I'm from Texas.
Say again?
I'm a steak, just like Larry. I'm from Texas, so that's got to be the priority.
Yeah, if you've never had this flank steak with chimichurri, you've got to make it. It's amazing. So again, you want to do about 4 minutes on the first side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to check it, because flank steak can shrink up because of those fibers. It's very, it's got that, it's from the stomach of the cow in the diaphragm area. And you need to turn it and cook it evenly on both sides so it doesn't buckle. And when you turn it and cook it evenly, then it keeps, you know, both sides. Otherwise, the browning won't happen if it buckles. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this down to medium now. And I'm going to check it. And it's got nice grill marks on it. So I'm going to lift it and turn it to get about 30 degrees to get grill marks on that. And you can see my fruit is ready to take off here. So I'm going to take that off. That one can go a little longer. That is nice. Look at that. And I'm going to cover it up and keep grilling. Okay, so now my heat's down to 400, which is okay. And I've got these really nice grilled lemons. As you can see, the caramelization on these things is pretty amazing. See that? So I'm going to grill that for about 1 more minute and then turn it on the other side. And while that's resting, I'm going to take this cinnamon here and get that ready to put on the grill. And now that the heat's kind of going down, I can get my little chorizo stuffed date ready to put on the grill, because I don't want that too high, because the bacon is going to cause flare-ups, and then it'll burn it'll burn the little skewers up. So all right, so I'm going to turn it now. It's been 1 minute. And you can see it's got nice grill marks on it. I don't know if you can see that, but see that? Very nice. And this should be done now. Yep, that's done. And now I can put my cinnamon on. All right, so I got my fruit for the sangria done. And I'm going to look at the clock. It's 11 o'clock in Colorado. And so I'm going to grill this about 3 minutes and check it again. And while that is happening, I'm going to cut up my fruit and muddle it. Any questions? Thoughts?
So you flip the flank steak after 4 minutes on the side one, and then you flipped it once and grilled for about 2 more minutes and then flipped it back to the original side?
No, I grilled it for like 3.5 minutes. Then I rotated it at 30 degrees to get crosshatch marks. And then I grilled it 1 more minute because it's still pretty hot. And then I just flipped it, and now I'm going to...
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, 3 more minutes, and then rotate it 30 degrees for crosshatch marks, and that should be good. And so you want to keep an eye on it. Keep your clock timer, keep noticing the time so that you don't keep it on too long, or because there are times for these things that are estimates, but again, it all depends on your grill. So it's been 2 minutes, and we're going to do 1 more minute and then take it off. And now I have my little grill shield here, my foil that's folded in 3 parts like a business letter, and I'm going to put that on next. So I'm going to just barely let the stuffed date hang over the edge of the grill shield. So it's about 490 on the dial here for temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and check it now. My cinnamon can come off. Whoops. You didn't see that. My
30-second rule.
Not going on. So I gotta let that heat up a little more. And I'm just gonna turn it up a teeny weeny bit. And while I'm doing that, I have some freshly grown mint right here that I'm gonna add to my fruit mixture for my sangria. That goes in, and I'm gonna start muddling it. So when you make cocktails, this is a muddler, and all you do is you just squeeze the juice. You don't want to, pulverize and, make all the, you don't want to break it up so that it gets in your drink too much, but you just want to squeeze it a little bit, get the oils in the mint, get the oils in the orange and lemon and lime rinds out, and mix it with that sugar mixture. And then it's ready for your Prosecco. So that's pretty much the grilled sangria. You pour this in a pitcher, add your grilled Prosecco, and boom. And also don't forget your cinnamon stick. So my steak probably got nice grill marks on that side now. And my little date is probably ready for flipping. I'm just going to leave that. It has grill marks on this side. I'm going to shut it again. And I am going to get a plate here so I can show you how I cut it. All right, so just ignore what I just did. I left the area for a brief second. And this should be ready to take off. Ooh, it is. Perfect. Wow, that looks good. So I've got my chorizo stuffed date there. My meat is ready to take off. Got nice grill marks. And I'm going to let this rest now. And I'm going to turn everything off. All right. So I'm just going to leave that open and let the heat go. And then out here, I've got my heavy duty Reynolds wrap foil. And I'm just going to put some foil over this so it rests a few minutes and answer any questions you might have. While that's happening, I'm going to grill these zucchini slices, and any veggies you want to make sure they are thick enough so they don't fall through the grate. Okay, so I'm going to lay those on the grill, and with the residual heat, just let those cook. And whether or not they develop grill marks, I don't know, but so now I've got my date. I'm gonna slide this baby off. And I'll see how I did. Any questions so far?
So when you took the flank steak off the grill, it was about 130 to 135.
I'm gonna test that. So I'm gonna put this not straight down, but of course through the side. We'll see what it is. It's about 130. I don't know if you can see that. Oops, it's gone down pretty fast, but yeah. So I'm gonna let it rest a little bit and then cut it. And I'll show you how to cut it. And when you cut it, you don't want to cut it with the grain, you know, because the grain runs this way, or you're gonna need dental floss to get it out of your teeth, and also it will be so tough. And the other thing about flank steak, sometimes it's folded up so that it makes it look thicker than it really is when you buy it at the grocery store. And you're going to have to decide where the best flank steak, you know, you can get it from the butcher's counter, and then they can show you how thick it is. And if there's thin parts, you just cut those off, because they're going to grill at a different rate, so that you have the thin little part grilling separately and on say the more indirect heat at first. It's still going to get grill marks, because when your grill is 600 degrees, it's still going to get grill marks on it. But it's going to cook a lot faster than that thicker part. And so if you cut and, you know, make sure your flank steak fits your dish that you're going to marinate it in. Sometimes they're really long, so you might want to cut it in half. And there also could be silver skin on it, which also is, you know, you cannot chew through silver skin. It's just way too tough. So you're going to need to remove that. And so the way I do it is I put my knife underneath, I go to the right, and then I lift the flap that I just cut and go to the left. And that's how, and you can even use a paper towel to hold on to it if it's too slick. So you want to remove the silver skin from your flank steak, as well as if there's a lot of extra fat on it, you want to take that off in case it has flare-ups. So.
Well, the little pieces that cook faster, aren't those called the chef's share?
Yes. Yes. So, I'm going to try my date. It's cool enough to handle now. Oh, that looks so good. Check it out. Doesn't that look really nicely caramelized? I'm going to eat this right here now in front of you all. So, sorry. Wow. These things are so good. They're so good. You have to try them. They're amazing. You're going to be the most popular person in your family and your neighborhood if you make these, the sangria. It's amazing. And that flank steak. So I'm going to save my sangria for later, because it is a little early to be popping open my bottle of Prosecco. And it will lose the bubbles. So I'm going to wait till my husband comes home. It would be nice to have a glass with y'all, but I'll wait for my husband. And
you're retired.
Yeah, well, it's pretty strong stuff. So This is so good. It doesn't have to be chorizo. It could be sopressata, you know, salami. That's also a really good one. But chorizo has a little paprika and it's a little spicy. Oh, great, the bees are coming. They can smell the sugar. So, fast forward. The steak is, say, you know, let's simulate 5 minutes here. And the way you're going to cut this, so the grain runs this way, right? You want to cut it with your knife at an angle because it's a thin piece of meat. And so I'm going to cut it at an angle and across the grain to make about 1/3 of an inch slice. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's still quite rare, and it's perfectly cooked inside. I'm gonna put that on a plate and see how I did. And I'm gonna add a little bit of the chimichurri sauce. And helps to have a spoon, but I'm just gonna pour this. So it makes a beautiful presentation. And like I said, you can leave this out on a buffet. And it's not gonna do it any harm. So there it is. Parsley, you can add cilantro to it, which I really like when you add cilantro. These recipes are from Stephen Raichlen from the Barbecue University. So I followed the recipe. So, but if you want more garlic, different herb in there, it's just really beautiful, herby, tangy, delicious sauce. So I highly recommend you try it.